welcome to the channel, and this is a kind of like a mini series that I want to do for June and July because it is wedding season and I wanted to kind of build different styles of wedding venues because in my experience there isn't that many wedding venues on the gallery or specific venues or places for weddings. So I thought, I could just make some in different styles and hopefully you guys will like them, download them, enjoy them. They will be on the gallery. This one is on the gallery already. My username is Irrelephantsims. This one specifically is going to be for the vintage bride. So I thought, how romantic would it be to go to an old English manor of some kind and have the chandeliers and the roses and just like really old looking architecture and gardens. So that's kind of what was the idea for this build, so I decided to do it. So I think if I didn't have the wedding that I did, this would probably be my dream wedding, or at least one of them. I have a lot of dreams, but it's just something about it is really romantic, and that's kind of what I was going for. I had this lighter brick. I think it came with the vampire pack, but it didn't look old enough to me, and so I changed the brick to the stone that came with the bowling pack, and I think it looks a lot better. I think it looks older because the stones are irregular and they're not really stacked on top of each other, and I think that reminds me more of older English architecture, European architecture really. And I imagine this home or this manor being built by, I don't want to say early 1800s because I think it's older than that, but maybe like 1700s or something. I looked at a few different English manors for reference, and I asked a few of my English friends, like, hey, what do you think of this? Do you think this looks accurate or authentic? And to my surprise, they were like, yeah, it does. So I was happy for that, and I'm pretty excited for this little series because I don't know, something about weddings, they're just really beautiful, and I actually wanted to be a wedding planner at one point in my life, and I'm still kind of interested in it, but I don't know if I would be any good at it. Maybe, I don't know, but it's just something that I've kind of always wanted to do. And so this little mini series is kind of my living vicariously through it to be a wedding planner of sorts, because I think that I'm going to be doing a different style or like theme for each venue, and then I'm going to be doing a different bride as the model of some kind, with different decorations and different locations and wedding dresses and all of that. So yeah, I think it should be fun, and I've been pretty excited to announce it. I've been planning it for quite some time now, and I think that, or I hope that you guys will enjoy it just as much as I've been so excited for it to come to be, and now it's finally here, and I'm like, yay! As you can see, I put like a pond or a lake in front of the manor, and I noticed that a lot of the older English like homes that belonged to the more wealthier families or owners of the homes, they usually had water surrounding it or close by to the manors, and a lot of greenery. So there's going to be a lot of landscaping in this one. I wanted it to look very old and lush and kind of overgrown, and you'll definitely see that once we get to the back. And I also sized up some of the trees because a lot of the older homes, even here in the US, but just older homes in general, they have big trees kind of surrounding it because the trees are so old that they're like ginormous. And so that's kind of what I was trying to do there, with all the trees surrounding the manor, and of course sizing them up to be extra big. And I believe everything is functional. I tested it out before I uploaded it, and I set it as a lounge because I don't think lots can be wedding venues if they're set to generic or something. So it is a lounge technically, so you might get unwanted guests. But let me know though if you can, with a generic lot, make it a wedding venue. So here we're doing the upstairs layout. So the upstairs is pretty much just the suites. So we have a bridal suite, a groom suite, and then there's a few extra rooms for guests if they need to stay at the manor. So I thought that was kind of nice because typically, you know, if you have a wedding, especially at night, they tend to last forever, and then your Sims are exhausted, and so wanted to make sure there was some beds and rooms for your Sims to stay at, just in case the party runs a little late. And this here is the reception area. So I imagine at one time this would have been a ballroom where the original owners of the manor would have balls and special events and things like that. So so I wanted to do something a little different, and I actually did this type of table in my townhouse build. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I wanted to do like a round looking table, because the round tables with the white covers on them, they were a little too small. I think I wanted some smaller, some bigger, so I added the rectangle ones, and I just kind of like duplicated them around so it looked like a bigger round table. I did delete some of these though because it was just a little too much, and I felt like I needed to have a sweetheart table somewhere, and I also wanted to have a dance floor so your Sims could actually dance and everything. So I did delete some of the tables, but I think it still looks kind of nice and realistic, and your Sims can actually sit on the tables that are on top of each other. And make sure to have move objects on if you do download this home before you place the lot, because there is a lot in this build that is just kind of on top of each other or merged. So make sure you have that on, and everything should be placed and work well for you. And I also have a kitchen. I don't know if it's shown the kitchen yet, but there's been far too many times when I've forgotten to cook a cake, and you know, we're already at the venue. So yeah, there's a little kitchen on this lot in case you need to make a cake, or in case, you know, the caterer doesn't show up or something. One of your Sims can make some food for the wedding, because that is such a problem. And then you have to, like, I don't know, end the game or start over, or hope and pray that you have a Sim that can cook something so that you can actually get through the wedding. But so at this point I was like, yeah, I really need to change the exterior. So this is when I decided to change the brick to the stone, and I think it looks a lot better. I think it looks older, and it's a little bit darker than the other one as well. So there's nothing I like more than littering the exterior of buildings with ivy. And it was actually at the suggestion of Devin Bumpkin, because I was like, hey, what do you think would make this look more authentic or better? And he was like, more ivy. And I was like, yes. I never say no to more ivy. I basically just littered the exterior, especially the front, because that's really what you would see most often, I think. And I also noticed in a lot of English gardens, there's a lot of lavender in the gardens. So I wanted to make sure I used a lot of lavender throughout the lot in the landscaping, which I like anyway. I love lavender. And I think I've seen Hatsi do this, but she used the like ruins that came with Get Together as like the foundation part of some of her buildings that are supposed to be old looking. And I really love that idea because not a lot of the foundations that come with the game actually look old and that they belong on this type of building. So I opted to go and try and, fit some of these ruin pieces at the bottom of the build. So it looks like, maybe some of the exterior was kind of broken off or older, and it has a little bit of moss like in between the cracks, which I loved. So that's why I opted to do that, and I really like how it came out. I think it's a really nice added detail to the foundation of the building. Here I was just adding a little bit more to the pond area because I didn't think that it looked natural enough with just the low bushes around it. So I wanted to add a few more of those low flowers, the white flowers that I love. And I thought about doing like a thing with the arches, but it just didn't really make sense for the build. So I decided to do kind of an isolated garden in the back. And I thought it would be kind of cool to do different seating or like different vintage chairs and benches and sofas for the ceremony seating. I've seen this done in real life and it actually looks really cool. So I thought, this would be the build to do it in. So yeah, I thought that looked kind of nice. And then I thought, it would be really nice to do different candles or candelabras down, I don't know, the runway? Or, not the runway, but the runner? I don't know what it's called. But I mean, technically, I don't think it would be safe to have, like, floor candles where the bride would be walking, because I'm sure that in real life her dress might catch on fire or something. But this is The Sims, so we don't have to worry about fire hazards. And now I'm just kind of mapping out where the garden is going to be, and I use terrain paint to do this, and I've seen other YouTubers who are amazing at landscaping do this too, but it's actually a lot easier if you kind of paint with the terrain paint first and kind of get an idea of where you want the landscaping to be, and it gives you a nice little shape to follow when you're placing the plants, which I found to be a lot easier than trying to figure that out later. So, and then another thing I do is I like to place a few kind of marker plants, I guess you would call them, just kind of surrounding it to get it started, and then I fill it up with a lot of different flowers and different colors and heights, and I think that makes it look a lot more realistic and more lush and just prettier, because some of my favorite gardens are the more lush gardens and the wild gardens. So I want it to be a little more wild and less manicured. This is one of my favorite bathrooms on the lot. It's I guess it would be like a guest bathroom. So I wanted to have different amenities kind of. So we have some tissues, and then I think I put some towels on the other side, but I really like it, and I really like the parenthood cabinets with this build. I think that, and I was surprised how versatile they were to kind of fit in with this type of style, but yeah, I like that. And then I figured that maybe they remodeled this this manor to be a little more friendly for modern times, and they added some toilets, multiple bathrooms for the guests in case they need it, because it's right down here offshoot of the reception area. So I thought that made sense as far as the layout point of view. And then these rooms over here, I would say are original to the manor. It was very typical of older homes, especially in the 18th century, to have kind of like a parlor or a sitting room for women and men. So this room here would be the bridal suite, and I wanted it to be very feminine, very light. I really liked the light wood with the light blue of the Victorian bed that came in the vampire pack. So I kind of styled the entire room around that bed. I thought it was very period specific to this build, and I really liked how it turned out. The groom's room, it's exactly like this, except it has darker wood in it. Again, it was kind of based around the bed. And I love this the fireplace that came with the parenthood pack, and it's so amazing. It's traditional, it's very classic, but it's not too ornate. And I really like that about it. So this is the groom's room, and like I said, it's exactly like the bridal room, except it's darker. It has darker woods, but I felt like that was pretty appropriate for this type of house. I think it would have that type of style, very traditional setup to it. So this room is like a guest room. I imagine the mother of the bride or the parents of the bride would stay in this room. So I wanted it to be very light and have the same kind of blues and whites that the bridal suite had, just so it kind of matches. So as I said before, these two rooms are kind of like sitting areas. Traditionally, they would be one for the men, one for the women, or one for guests and one for family. That's kind of how they were set up at one time. But I thought, since this is a wedding venue, maybe guests who are kind of wanting to get away from all the party going on in the reception could just kind of come to the sitting areas and have some conversation, and that's more private in a way. I imagine that people who had balls and special events back in the day would kind of do the same thing. So yeah, but anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this build. I'm excited for next week for the next wedding venue, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.